Hello and welcome to the Nagoya Basho podcast from Tachiai. I have joining me Josh, our normally traveling sumo specialist. Say hello, Josh.
Hey guys, what's up?
Happy to see you here. Thanks for joining us. And of course, the creator of Tachiai, Andy. Hi, Andy.
Hey, Bruce. How are you?
I'm delighted to be here. Another magical day to talk about sumo. We've got a week before almost from right now, before the first matches in Nagoya. They're actually going to take the tournament on the road for the first time in over a year. They're going to try to hold a Hanbasho in the sweltering Dolphins Arena up there in Nagoya. Josh, suicidal or brilliant marketing move?
It's okay for it to be both, you know. On the one hand, you know, it's important to not understate how good and beneficial these regional, if you like, tournaments are. They all have an incredible atmosphere, and these aren't really places that a lot of tourists go.
Yep.
Certainly some do, but it's a diehard crowd that shows up under normal circumstances. Obviously, there's no tourists in Japan right now, but I think, as you say, Nagoya is an absolutely brutal venue until the new arena gets built. And the real worry, you know, you talk about, you know, maybe suicidal, but the worry is pandemic situation. There's a lack of circulation in that venue.
Yes.
Anybody's been watching sumo for years. Think back to a few years ago, watching Nagoya Basho, they're wheeling in these huge bricks of ice as if that's going to like cool down the venue. I can tell you it doesn't really help, having been there. Listen, man, it's suffocating at the best of times. I love Nagoya style katsu, but I wouldn't want to be there.
Nagoya style katsu. How dare you bring that up at supper time? All right, Andy, you have been likewise in the sweat palace that is Dolphins Arena. What do you think?
Yes, if you look behind me, you can see Haruma Fuji picking up his Yusho there, and I mean, like Josh said, it's sweltering there. It's not fun, but it will be very nice to actually get out of Tokyo for a little bit. I know we all know that it's basically because of the Olympics that they're pushing this out. It will probably be quite a long time before we start seeing Jungyo and things like that again. But when I was reviewing this picture, it made me wonder if we're going to see a Yusho parade.
Oh, wow.
Because the last time that this picture was taken when Haruma Fuji won, and Teruno Fuji was on the back of the car with him. So that was a very exciting time.
Oh, yeah.
And it would be nice to see that. But like Josh said, it's COVID, and when you get a whole bunch of people in that sweaty gym, and then I guess a few crowds afterward, I'm not sure that they're gonna go for that, but I do hope that we get to see a Yusho parade, even if it's socially distanced or something like that. But we're opening up here quite a bit more, and so I'm optimistic. But I do know that in the UK they seem to be shutting things down again, so it's kind of hodgepodge, I guess. So we'll see.
So yeah, the Tokyo Olympics due to start in just a few weeks. I think they pulled this Basho forward by a week, didn't they? In order to accommodate?
Yeah, I think they did.
Because it's starting 4th of July weekend here in the United States, which I find fantastic because we've got a 3-day weekend, and I'm just going to binge watch the daylights out of this thing. It's going to be a magical time. And I think the big topic, and we'll get into a little bit more in the second segment, but we've got to talk about this as the tournament where Hakuho tries to return. He's been out for a year. It's been a year since he's done any actual competition of any kind at all. He's had reconstructive surgery on that knee. We don't know how effective it's been. They're trying to put a happy face on it, of course, at the Heya. But as it's been said, this tournament is make or break for the boss. The sort of undisputed, unassailable best rikishi ever. I don't know, Josh. Will this be a raging return, or is this the hill he dies on?
I hope so. I mean, I kind of hope either one is kind of acceptable, right?
Yeah.
You got to go out somehow. But, it's kind of funny. There was unrelated a thread happening on Sumo forum this last week, and everyone was talking about the commentators on NHK and their points of view on various things, and brought up a conversation that I had with Murray Johnson a couple years ago. And as I was rereading the interview that we had with Murray on the site, he said, if you're just getting into sumo or you're a fan, as far as the GOAT is concerned, while he's here, enjoy him. And so for me, for this tournament, as you say, it's a make or break tournament, so he has to show up and he has to do his best. Whatever state that he shows up in, I'm going to enjoy it.
Yep.
And I think the opportunity for us to see him on the dohyo, whether it's one more time or for one of the last times, is something to look forward to. And, hopefully he's in this kind of mood and get some great results.
So Andy, I mean, it's been years. It's been 4 years or maybe even 5 years on Tachiai blog. We've been talking about the transition era and what we think is happening. I'm not the least bit surprised that Hakuho is the last one standing out of the old guard. Do you think that this is the sunset ride, or do you think that he's got a couple more in him?
I'm optimistic from what he's been saying out of his surgery that we might be able to see a couple of more tournaments and that this won't be the last one. But a tournament without a Yokozuna is just missing
a little hollow,
something.
Isn't it?
It is. And, I mean, we haven't seen a dohyo Iri go, for the 15 days since Kakuryu's always been out, and now he's retired. Hakuho is our last gasp, and if he goes, it will be a while before we see Yokozuna dohyo Iri
Oh,
again.
I don't know about that. That's going to come up in segment 2. We're going to talk about that. But, I mean, if you think about it, Hakuho's actually already started to begin a bit of a transition into a retirement career. He's already casting a huge shadow. We talked about this in our last podcast about he's already sort of an oyakata in some senses. But we're starting to see what I'm going to call, and I'm sure I'm going to take arrows for this, what I call the golden age stables. There was an incredible cohort of rikishi for the past 10, 15 years, just absolutely unstoppable talent. Like nothing I think I may see again in my lifetime. And now, for the most part, most of them, if not all of them, have taken up their oyakata roles, the ones that were able to get a kabu. And they're starting to open stables. I mean, we've got the former Kisina Sato moving out to Ibaraki now to start training his deshi. We've got Ikkyoi going through a bit of a challenge with positioning himself to become a stable master, and of course, Takakaze, who, by the way, has lost an incredible amount of weight and is almost unrecognizable in his current form, making positive noises about setting up a stable. You've got Hakuho, who's definitely going to be setting up a stable, and you've definitely got Kakuryu, who, if he isn't going to set up a stable, is doing sumo a huge disservice. Josh, thoughts about what I'm calling the golden age stables?
Yeah, I think you have these periods throughout history, right? And you talk about, rightly so, this period 15 years ago that sort of heralds this amazing recruiting class, right? You have this maybe 2-3 year cycle where an incredible amount of talent comes in. A lot of guys coming in through the college system, some guys who are further down the chain in the lower divisions coming up. But I think throughout history there have been these periods where there have been, a dominant cabal, if you want to put it that way, of stable masters, incredible stables. We always talk about all the stuff that this cranky old guy Kitano Fuji says, and we forget the fact that this guy was one of those guys in his own right, a former Yokozuna who raised an incredible, we had 2 Yokozuna in his own right as a stable master, Kokonoe, in the 80s, and his Izutsu before that. And same thing again with Izutsu Oyakata in the 70s and the stable that was. So, there are definitely these stables and these periods throughout history. You have 4 or 5 interesting stables. The thing that I think is really unique about this moment, Bruce, that you talk about with this new generation of Oyakata are retiring, some of them have already made plans to branch out, is the fact that there are multiple of these guys who are publicly talking about the fact that they intend to do things differently than it has been done before. Because I think the generations before really sort of, I'm not going to say there wasn't an evolution, but they really sort of preserved the culture that had gone before. And I think, the culture of what sumo is always going to stay largely the same. But when you talk about, installing multiple dojos or involving, as the former Takekaze is, local university students and like not building a gym because they can use the one nearby, or these guys like Naruto who are installing cameras in the Kekoba, things like that. They're a little different, I think, is what is going to be really interesting to watch, and it'll be intriguing. This would be a good segue to Andy. For those folks who are really inclined to look at data and things like that, do these recruits in these stables start to move a little bit faster?
Yep.
Do their techniques start to vary a little bit more? Do these guys, inherit a lot of the technique that their Oyakata did? Or like we're seeing with Hakuho, is it more about recruiting a enormously wide variety of people
with a focus on enormous?
Yeah. Well, in Enho's case,
Well, not Enho. All right, we'll get to
that. Exactly. So who knows? It's going to be really fun to watch.
So Andy, I actually think that Josh made a significant point here. I think Naruto is already starting to show fruits of allowing his rikishi to review footage from their practice sessions. But yeah, you're the resident numbers guy. Reaction.
Well, and also Naruto seems to be much more of the social media.
Yeah.
He's definitely absorbed that and taken to that a lot more than any of the others. Some of the other sumo stables, I mean, their websites are rather lacking, and especially the English websites.
Perfunctory.
I mean, some of the English websites. Yeah, they look like they were built in GeoCities or whatever. But
well, I mean, that's very traditional, right? The GeoCities came about in the Edo period, and that's how they're keeping it.
I just would not be surprised to see like blink tags on some of these things. But Sokokurai kind of eased in when he eased into his slot as a stable master. To me, that was kind of the first of the Hakuho era rikishi, where the transition was starting to come in into the where the wrestlers from the Hakuho era were starting to become Oyakata in their own right. We see that now with Araiso opening up his new stable, bringing one of his new recruits along with a couple of others from Takasago Beya, and then Ikioi. I feel bad for him that his fiance did not seem to, I guess, really look for the Okami-san responsibilities. She's still got a career in her own right, but with Takekaze really picking up steam and building his own stable, whether he'll probably take over the Ogura Mabeya, or if that goes to Yoshikaze, we're starting to see, I guess, this generation start to be more than just coaches, but running their own stables. Yes. And to me, that's pretty exciting. We'll see Kakuryu, I'm sure, and I'm very eager to see what wrestlers and what recruitment these guys can do, because so far Hakuho has been the only one who's been recruiting of those of that generation of Oyakata, and even though he's still active, obviously. But I'm eager to see what this new generation is going to bring. And I mean, there's still a lot of really, really interesting, good coaches down there too. I'm not sure if like if Goedo will probably be taking over Sakaigawa Beya.
Seriously?
Well, there's so many. I mean, there's so many coaches over there, and then with Kasugano, I'm. I mean, Tochiozan, I think,
Yeah.
might have a bit more of a difficult time trying to inherit that stable because I think they've got something like 7 coaches, and several of them were former Sanyaku. So I think that a lot as the Chiyonofuji era Oyakata start to retire, a lot of these guys are gonna start trying to pick up their own stables, and I'm not sure if like a guy like Homasho or Satoyama will be able to
Right.
take out their own stable, but it'll be exciting. I mean,
I think the Kanban Rikishi will all end up with stables within 5 or 6 years, I think. Right? And when I call this golden age, it's because all of them are young, right? They're in their 30s. They're going to be Oyakata for another 30 years. Some of them have very strong coaching or sort of sports mechanics training like Yoshikaze. And all of them are interested in trying new things. And so I think that we're going to, I know a lot of people think that the fading of the Hakuho era is sumo light. And I've seen people call that on sumo forums. I've seen them talk about it on Twitter. I've seen comments on the blog with that. But frankly, people, I think this is the start of something neat, something great. And I think 6-7 years from now, the sumo is going to, it won't be, of course, like watching Hakuho and Harumafuji just, kill everyone for 15 days. But I think it's going to be very exciting stuff.
Well, and you brought up the university programs. I mean,
Yep.
that tie with Aminishiki and the Waseda program
Yep.
is very interesting because that's not I guess, a historically strong program there. But with that tie, I'm wondering if there's going to be more direct links and possibly a nice little pipeline of recruits
I hope so.
coming up through there. So I'm pretty eager to see what that new format will look like. And I think that there may be a more direct recruiting line through high school into the colleges and then right into a sumo stable.
Yep. So let's round out segment 1 with some of the worst news from the past 6 to 8 weeks. And, it's the disappearance of Ryuden and Asanoyama from the top division. For folks who were living under a rock for the last couple of months, the sort of great hope Ozeki Asanoyama, who had been underperforming for several tournaments. Well, it turns out that during lockdown, he had been going to hostess bars. He lied about it. He attempted to, how should we say, persuade the reporter who was getting ready to blow his cover. Ryuden had something similar going on, and both of these guys are in deep trouble and are probably getting busted far down the ranks. I don't know, Josh, is it even worth speculating about Asanoyama mounting a return?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I seem to be in the minority when I think that, I'm a little less optimistic about what happens with him in the future. It's 3 years at the least before, he can be Ozeki again. That's kind of what's the subplot to this. Everyone's, six Basho suspension. Where's he going to be ranked? It's not really the punishment, which first of all was more for the lying, I think, than it was for the actual thing that he did. If punishment was for the thing that he did, it would have been a much lighter punishment. But the punishment is the total duration, really, if you think about it, of time that it's going to take for him to get back to where he is, if he ever will.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot to say about this. I'll try to be quick about it, but I saw the great friend of ours, Kintamayama, made a point, which was Abi may be the exception, not the rule when it comes to these guys being able to just, serve their time, come back 7-0 in Makushita, another 7-0 in Makushita, and they're back up to the top ranks.
Yep.
It may not be that easy for some of these other guys, and I think the other thing that people are talking about here is like, these poor guys, these poor lower division guys who get to, their progress gets stopped in their tracks because Asanoyama gets banged way down into Sandanme. These poor Makushita 47 guys who have to fight Ryuden. Like, the reality is they weren't vacating the spots that they were vacating in the top two divisions for sumo reasons. And there are always 70 guys in the top two divisions, which means that opportunities have been created for lower division rikishi to take their place and either keep that place, or for folks that were on the bubble of coming back down, to be able to prolong their stay in the salaried ranks. So, also, as we've seen over the last few months, rikishi who are taking their health more seriously are dropping down there. So I think this whole conversation about these poor guys in the lower divisions, I don't really buy it. And I don't think anybody in Sandanme also is complaining about the fact that they get the opportunity to fight Asanoyama, right? Yep. I think anybody who's down there who's a competitor is going to see it as a real test. If they don't, they're not someone who's going to be making it up to Juryo anyway. Asanoyama's not going to be fighting anybody who's struggling to be 4-3 at Sandanme 24. I think to conclude on that point, I think, with respect to Abi, I think I'm glad that he's done his time. He owned up to it. Ryuden owned up to it. He's already started to do his time. Asanoyama's suspension starts now. It's as bad as it is because he didn't own up to it. Now he has. Hopefully he's learned his lesson. Hopefully other people learn the lessons from these guys that don't break the guidelines. They're there for a reason. Pandemic's not getting any better in Japan right now, and with the worries, as we spoke about earlier, that the Olympics will bring, hopefully these are the last such suspensions that we see.
Andy, any comments on this one?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I mean, Abi's rise is not over yet. He's just made it to the bottom rank of Juryo, and I think that's what you were getting to, Josh, about Asanoyama. Abi's ride back to Sanyaku is not going to be as easy as his ride through Makushita. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I really like your point that Asanoyama is not going to be facing like a Moriurara or somebody when he goes down there. He wins. He'll be in like the winner's track, in the Yusho track for Sandanme for one tournament, and then probably 2 tournaments through Makushita. But those are a lot of Sekitori hopefuls, but also a lot of Sekitori, like former Sekitori, who are down there and themselves hoping to get back up there. So it will not be an easy ride, especially through Juryo, to get back up to Ozeki for Asanoyama. I'm not, I guess, optimistic about his hopes at becoming Ozeki again, because we're seeing how hard it is for Takayasu to get back up there, and he's just having to come from, I think he was at N8 or something, and so he's not had to go through as long of a ride as Asanoyama will. So I think Asanoyama's career may have peaked already.
Yeah, and I'll add, and I'm sorry, I've been an Asanoyama fan for a terrible long time. His sumo mechanics had gone to hell this year. I know that it's not his body that's a problem. The problem's right up here, and until he can get that organ straightened out, he's going to continue to bump along and have troubles. And I think you're right, Josh and Andy. I think he may actually have to struggle a bit before he can get himself straight. And whether he runs out of time or his body gives up on him before that happens, I guess we'll find out. But I wish him the best, because I still think he's a great rikishi. And with that, we're going to conclude segment 1. Folks, join us for segment 2, where we break down our thoughts about the upcoming tournament. And thank you very much. And remember, for sumo, it's Tachiai.